And if everyone can please welcome our main speaker, Lauri B.
Hi, I'm Lauri B, and I'm an addict. Glad to be here. By the grace of God, I've been clean and sober since January 6th of 1987, and for that, I'm truly grateful. Okay, there we go. That makes me feel really old in a room where most people didn't exist in 1987, but just to let you know, I got sober at 23, so I get it. I was completely done years before I got clean and sober. So I'm now 54, and it's been the best ride of my life. It's been the only ride of my life that I want to remember, right? Besides when I'm here and reflecting on how grateful I am for everything that has happened to me. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I want to thank James, of course, for asking me to come here today. You guys have been awesome. I mean, the fact, like, you never think like your drug use, the thing that brought you down to your knees and almost killed you, is going to be the very thing that gets you to a Hyatt on a plane with a gift bag with a bunch of prizes in it. Like, this just doesn't happen, except for in our world, right? So I'm just going to jump right into it. I grew up in New York in an alcoholic family. My dad was a crazy, angry alcoholic. My dad kind of reminded me of Jack Nicholson in The Shining. He was very funny and very angry, but never at the same time. I have two sisters, one older, one younger. I have a mom that took a lot of prescription pills to block out my dad, and my dad was physically abusive on me and sexually abusive on my older sister, and my little sister hid a lot because she saw what was going on. She got really smart really quick. And from the time I was little, I believed in God. I believed I had done something in a past life, like maybe I was a witch or something. And I had come back into this life to do time for whatever sins I had done as a witch, because I couldn't figure out why else a kid would be born into this crazy family. And since I got clean, a therapist once asked me, like, when did you become suicidal? And it wasn't until that very moment that she asked me that I realized I didn't become suicidal. I existed like suicidal from the moment I came out. I didn't bond to human beings at all because of the insanity going on in my house. The only thing I ever bonded to was my dog, and I didn't want to be here. There were days where I decided I would stay for the dog, but there were so many other days that I just wanted to check out. And just to give you some perspective, we grew up in a nice neighborhood and we had nice things. But behind the closed doors, it was a living hell, and it didn't matter, right? None of that stuff mattered. And my dad was an airline pilot, which should make you feel safe if you're traveling, because he was drinking all the time. And as a kid, I thought, like, what's he gonna hit, like a cloud? But now I realize, like, being on planes a few times, you gotta do the whole takeoff landing thing that gets pretty intense. Probably shouldn't be drinking. And but I rationalized a lot of stuff because I didn't understand what was going on around me. And from the very young age, I was violent because of my dad's violence on me. My first act of violence that I clearly remember was in nursery school. I was in nursery school, and there was this kid in my class that looked stupid, like her tongue hung out all the time. And seriously, I showed her to my home group, and they're like, I showed them the picture of my nursery school class, and they're like, there she is, right? So yeah, her tongue hung out. She was bigger than the other kids. She looked like something was wrong with her. She wore small clothes. She was just too big, too weird. And I thought, this kid looks so dumb. She needs to be hurt. And at that point, I'm like 4 or 5, right? So I told her we were going to play house, and I had her line up next to the stairs up top, and we were going to sleep. It was sleepy time, and then when she closed her eyes, I kicked her down the flight of stairs. And I don't remember feeling guilty at all. As a matter of fact, she was hyperventilating so bad she couldn't talk when the teacher wanted to know who did it. And I was like, glad, right? And things went downhill from there because, you know, that was just when I was a little peanut. So I started to grow and get bigger, and it got worse. And you know, I was very angry, and I like to do things that were dangerous. And I liked anything that scared me. I liked scary movies. We had this rickety old bridge down the street. It looked like it was going to fall apart. It had been there forever, and the train would go under it, and the bridge would shake like it was going to fall. So whenever the bridge was coming, I would run out there and sit on the bridge, wondering if it was going to fall this time. Just like anything, any kind of trouble. I started hitchhiking at a young age. I started skitching at a young age. So in New York, where it snows, and I don't know if you guys know about skitching, but skitching is like there's ice on the ground, you got boots on, and you grab on the back of a bumper of a car, and you're just going with them. It's probably not safe, for someone that drives now, but that's what we did. And as they approached the red lights, we'd let go. And I started stealing at a young age. I'd steal at the 5 and dime. Anything I could do for a little bit of control outside of the house is what I would do. And because I was getting in so much trouble, like I couldn't talk to my family about what was going on because they were pretending like nothing's wrong. So anytime I was out of the house, I was in trouble. I was always in trouble at school. And my parents started taking me to see psychiatrists and psychologists and getting me on meds because better to say something's wrong with Lauri than something's wrong with our family, right? Also, my dad was coming home from airline trips with presents for my sister and not my mom. So I didn't see my dad do anything to my sister at this point, but I saw him coming home with presents for my sister. And I saw how my sister talked to my dad and how my mom talked to my dad, and something was strange there, and I knew it. And as an abused kid, I'm like watching everything, Also, we grew up Jewish, so I can't track my first drink, but I know it was Grape Concord Manischewitz wine. I don't know when it happened, but I've been to a lot of bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs, and there's little hands coming up from the floor to get the trays of cups of wine, and those are my people. So we started young. So, I was always hanging out with the bad kids. I was always glommed onto them wherever they were, I was. And when I was like 13, my mom had enough of my dad's abuse on us and she left. And her plan was like to leave us and go build a life because my dad controlled all the money and go get a job and save some money and send for us kids. So, and I remember I wasn't angry at my mom when she left. As a matter of fact, I was thinking, glad somebody got out. You know what I mean? It was like a living hell. And I was just glad she escaped because my dad was abusing her too. And frankly, I didn't know if she was coming back. But I look a lot like my mom. So when my mom left, my dad's anger on me got a lot worse, right? So before he was beating me up, whenever he would come in or whenever he would get angry. And now it was all the time. He was really angry at my mom. And my mom and dad had like this walk-in closet that had clothes in it when my mom was there, and it filled up with cases of Smirnoffs. And my dad had a handgun. He always had a handgun ever since I was really little. I never really thought, why does a pilot need a handgun, right? But when it exists, when it just is, you just assume it is, right? So he had this closet that was filled up with alcohol, and he said, don't ever go in my room, to all of us, and don't ever open the door of my closet. So my dad was scary enough, we didn't, right? So now he's going on airline trips, and sometimes he's leaving a babysitter with us, and sometimes he's just leaving us alone. And because it was too much for him to do all this, he couldn't figure out work, the babysitters, the schedules of the kids. So, and in the 70s, there was a thing called latchkey kids, and what that meant was like we had our own keys. Kids had their own keys. They were latchkey kids. There wasn't so much about child abuse around leaving kids home alone, right? So my dad goes away on an airline trip one day, and he's usually gone for 2 or 3 days at a time because he has to fly somewhere or stay till the flight comes back. So the next day I have my friend Jeanette spend the night, and the plan is Jeanette's going to spend the night, and my sisters are out somewhere, and in the morning we're going to hitchhike to McDonald's, and that's what we did. We'd hang out at McDonald's, eat French fries, smoke cigarettes, and maybe fight because it's New York, We fought a lot. So... And I think kids still do that, like something about fast food and kids and smoking. I don't know what that is, but that's where we were, right? So she spends the night, and in the morning, we get up to hitchhike to McDonald's, and we get in the shower, and we get out of the shower, and we can't find the blow dryers anywhere. So if you're a chick, if you can't find a blow dryer, you're not going anywhere, right? You're not going out like that. So we start looking around the house. Now, usually the blow dryer is right under the bathroom cabinet, but my dad used to do a lot of crazy stuff to piss me off, right? So we start looking for the blow dryers throughout the house. She's looking somewhere else in the house. I'm back in the bathroom. I've given up. And I have to think that she went into my dad's closet looking for the blow dryer and maybe left the door open. Because what happened next is I'm in the bathroom, she's somewhere in the house, and all of a sudden I hear the garage door open. Now, at the age of 13, I'm like a skilled war veteran in regards to where my dad is in the house at all times, because I could tell by the pace of his footsteps if he's angry. And if if you grew up like this, you can tell, when to get out. And still today, as an old person at my work, I can tell everyone's footsteps that's coming to my office. And it's not something I did consciously. It's something I did subconsciously as a kid, but I'm trained up. You know what I mean? I'm trained up to know who's coming. So I hear him come in through the garage door. I'm not expecting him home. He doesn't know I have a friend spending the night. And I'm just standing there wondering what's going to happen next. So I hear him come down the hallway. I hear him set his briefcase down. And then he used to keep change in his pilot cap. So I hear it smack on the bed, and then it's really quiet. And the bathroom door where I'm at is almost closed. I don't know if Jeanette heard him. I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden it gets really quiet and I'm standing in the bathroom and all of a sudden he comes through the bathroom door, storming in, and he's got the blow dryer in his hand. And he starts slamming it on me and he's trying to beat me up with the blow dryer. And I get in between the toilet and the wall for like cover. And he's hitting me, but he's missing me. And the plaster is flying out of the wall. Like he's going nuts. And Jeanette is somewhere else in the house and hears what's going on and runs into the bathroom and sees him and sees me. And it's like he turns around when she makes like a noise, like she gasped for a minute. And it's like an equally resonant shock for two completely different reasons. He's like, holy shit, someone's in the house. Nobody ever sees what goes on in our house, right? And she's like, oh my God, Lauri's getting beat up, because we're usually the little ones doing the beating up. You know what I mean? So she goes into the kitchen and calls her mom and goes, you got to get over here. Lauri needs help right now. You need to come get us. And then my dad goes into his bedroom and shuts the door because he's probably freaking out that somebody saw what kind of person he really is, because my dad's pretty well respected in the community, you know? So he's freaking out. She's freaking out. Her mom shows up, takes me back to their house, and her mom and dad are talking to me about what happened and it's not okay. And this can't happen anymore. And I'm frankly like, if you've grown up like this, you know what it's like. I'm embarrassed that these people know how crazy my family is, right? So I'm not saying anything. I'm just letting them talk. And I just want to get the hell out of Dodge because I don't want anyone to know how crazy we are, right? So then my dad calls up over there and the phone rings and her parents answer. And it's like, he said, Lauri's crazy. She's been to see psychiatrists. I can hear the parents on the other end of the phone, psychologists. She steals, she lies. She's on meds right now. My parents put me on all kinds of meds. She's on meds for schizophrenia. So I think her parents were like, wow, this is way too much for us to get involved in. We had no idea all this other stuff was going on. And frankly, we don't know what, to do right now. But your dad's coming back to get you and we're sure it'll be okay. He won't hit you again because he knows we know, right? So now it's gone to a different level. So I'm like, waiting for my dad to come get me. My dad picks me up, takes me back to the house, doesn't say anything on the drive, which is normal for my dad. We really don't talk. And then we get to the house and I'm back home again. He holds the front door open, like kind of politely to let me in. My dad was never polite to me. So when he opens the front door and he holds it for me, I thought, wow, that's interesting. Maybe he's changed, right? Maybe he's scared. But when I walked through the door, his fist hit me so hard in the back of the spine that I slammed on the floor. And I realized he was just trying to get me in a place where he knew he could hit me. And I was a target, right? And I think I got enough nerve just from talking to those parents to get out. So for the first time in my life, I got out. He was chasing me. I ran around the dining room table. I ran out the front door and I hid in the bushes till he stopped looking for me. And then I hitchhiked over to my friend Erin's house. Now, Erin was like an always latchkey kid. She had a mom that I never met and she didn't have any dad. And she had a hippie brother and they smoked a lot of weed. So I thought I could crash at Erin's house, right? So I get to Erin's house. I pick up the phone. I call home. He answers the phone. And I said, I'm at Erin's and I'm not coming home. Click. And, I think about that now and it's like, that was really stupid. You just told him where you were at, right? For me at 13, it was like habit. I call home when I'm somewhere, but more than that, it was a statement. Like, don't even try. I'm not coming home. Click. And it was like a statement, like, this is it. It's over. And so I'm at Erin's house in the middle of the night, the phone rings. I mean, the middle of the night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings and she hands it to me and she says, it's your aunt. And I get on the phone and my aunt's on the phone and she said, Lauri, the police are at the house. We know you have your dad's gun and we're coming to get you right now. And I'm like, my dad used to set up some crazy situations. I didn't have his gun. I told you guys what just happened. But I knew it was another one of my dad's stories, right? So my aunt comes and gets me, takes me back to the house. My dad's sitting at the the kitchen table with a bunch of police officers and they're looking at me and they're asking me about my dad's gun. And they're like, do you know your dad's gun? Yeah, I know my dad's gun. Do you know what it looks like? Yeah, I know what it looks like. Do you have your dad's gun? No, I don't have my dad's gun. I just keep on repeating myself. I don't have my dad's gun. I know the gun. I've seen the gun, but I don't have it. And after a while, they get tired of questioning me and they tell me to go into my room and they want to talk to my dad alone, right? So I go into my bedroom. I'm back in my bed. I can't believe I'm back in this crazy house again. And then I see the police leave outside my window. The car leaves. And then my aunt comes into my bedroom and she kneels down next to my bed and she said, Lauri, I just saw your dad and your sister, like my older sister, the one that I thought something might be going on with. I just saw your dad and your sister sneak the gun out of the oven. And I know they were trying to set you up, but the bottom line is the police are gone. And if you call the police on your dad and get him arrested, I don't know what's going to happen to you guys. You're going to go to an orphanage? Who's going to take care of you? And the one person I did care about was my little sister. And I hated my dad. Like, if I knew a hit kid at school that would have off my dad, I would have saved lunch money all year round. Get that guy to sue this guy, right? But at the same time, I knew that everything I thought about myself was a reflection of my dad and God. God hated me, my dad hated me. And I had tried everything to get my dad to like me. I thought maybe you wanted me to be quieter, smarter, funnier. I had tried everything. And at this point, I thought maybe you wanted a boy. Well, plus I was acting like a boy, dressing like a boy, fighting all the time. And I would man up when he would beat me. I'd stop crying. I wouldn't be crying like a baby anymore. I'd hold it in because I thought if he doesn't get the thrill out of it, maybe he'll stop beating me. Maybe someday he'll like me. So I went through all these changes to be what my dad wanted me to be. And I thought if I tell on him for setting me up, he'll never love me. I could just throw in the towel on that one. So I told her, I'm not going to tell on my dad. I'm cool. So she left my bedroom, and I finally fall asleep. And in the morning, I'm woken up by a different police officer at my bedroom door, and he asked me to get dressed. And I walk out of my room dressed, and he puts me in handcuffs and walks me down to the driveway and puts me in the back seat of a police car, and we start to drive. And frankly, I don't know if this is like, are they rescuing me? Like, are they handcuffs? I don't know what's going on here. I don't know where this guy's taking me. And in the 70s, there was this whole generation gap thing that I think is not so much anymore, but little people didn't talk to big people so much. They even wrote a song about it, right? So we were a totally segregated population. We didn't trust the big people. So I'm in the backseat of that car, and I don't know where we're going, but when we pull off the freeway and I see the dark gates of Central Islip Mental Institution for the criminally insane, and we start to go down the path, and I see the big building with the bars at the end, I'm like, oh my God, like, Lauri, you should have told someone. Like, you should have told someone yesterday because they're taking you here. They think you're crazy. They think you tried to kill your dad, right? And now to say something to this police officer, it's just not going to work because why didn't you say it last night, right? So I go into this place and I am more suicidal than ever. Before it was like, as a kid, I always thought I was a witch in a past life, as you know. And now being in this crazy house, I thought it was like God was like, sentence the witch to hell. And before I was angry at God, and I had this little diary, I used to cuss God out. And, I thought if I'm angry enough, maybe he'll let me die. Maybe he'll kill me. But now it was like I stopped talking to God. And I was more suicidal than ever in this place. So they put me in a straitjacket, and they put me in a solitary room, and they tied the arms of the straitjacket around the bed, and they drugged me. And for me, it was the opposite of a spiritual awakening. It was a spiritual deadening that would rule my life for the next 10 years because I was alone, and God hated me, and I knew it. And I hated him too, and he knew it, right? So I'm in this place, and this is like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was written after Pilgrim State Kings Park in Central Islip, which was the place I was in. They stopped doing lobotomies like 7 years before I got there. Like, lobotomies is like when you take a crazy person, you just take part of their brain out and makes them think, and they don't act crazy anymore, right? So they had just stopped doing that a couple of years before I arrived, but they're still doing shock therapy and tying people to beds and stuff like that, right? So it was crazy house. And it wasn't a little kid's place. It was old people, right? So my mom kept on calling back to the house to see how we were doing. And my dad kept on saying, they're outside playing. You missed her again. She's over at Amy. She's not here right now. Bad luck. You tried again, and she's not here again. Finally, my mom realized it's been months since my mom's talked to me and since she's left. So she realizes something must have went down. So she calls a couple of doctors around town, and someone says there was a kid admitted to Central Islip. Maybe it's Lauri. So she finds me in there. But she's living in California, and she doesn't have enough money to get me out. She doesn't have like a stable place to live. She's working a full commission job. So she signed some paperwork to get me transferred out of Central Islip Mental Institution to a group home in New York in Stony Brook. And that was where I met people like me for the first time in my life, people like you guys, except for they were small and they weren't sober yet, So my people, right? So for the first time in my life, I would bond to another human being, these little broken kids that were so tough, and they became my mentors. Like, I had been stealing, and I'd been smoking, and I'd been drinking, but these kids taught me to mug old ladies down by the train station. We were just teeny little kids, so we could only handle old ladies. That's why we were doing old ladies, poor ladies. And then they taught me about acid. We'd go to the college field and get sheets of acid. So for me, it was like the peak of my using career. It was fun, it was on, and I had a family, right? And sooner or later, my mom gets enough money to get me to California, and I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to that crazy family. I want to stay with my people, right? So my mom gets enough money, and I have to leave the group home. And I go to California, and I show up in Newport Beach, California, which is like a really high-end area at my mom's apartment. And they sign me up for Newport Harbor High School, which is a really high-end high school where girls look like girls, and I don't. And there's no fight pit at Newport Harbor High School. I mean, it's like nothing like my New York school. And I'm dressing like a boy, acting like a boy. I got steel toes in my boots. Like, I just don't fit in at Newport Harbor High School. So they signed me up for school, and I go to the school, but I don't go to class. I go to the smoke pit where I see you guys, right? So every day I show up to the smoke pit. Like, I still have bad dreams today where I never showed up to class. And that's what happened. I never showed up to class. I showed up to the smoke pit every day. I went to art class once in a while, and that was it. But I met these girls at the smoke pit, and one of them had left some of her crap at her ex-boyfriend's, and he wasn't giving it back, so we decided to break in and get it, because, he's gone during the day. And when we broke in there, we thought, God, this isn't a bad idea. Everyone's at work and school. We could break into houses every day. So it was a good, we were bored at the smoke pit, and so we started breaking into houses and getting cigarettes, alcohol, and money, so we could smoke, drink, and celebrate that we burglarized another house by ordering a pizza. From Domino's, and that was our gig, right? So that's what we would do every day. We'd knock on the door. If nobody answered, we'd go around the back, go through a window, right? Really skilled. And one day, one of the girls said, if we're going to break into houses, I think we should start taking jewelry, because she had seen on TV, like, cop shows and stuff. They take jewelry. They take expensive stuff. So we were like, okay. So we started taking jewelry, but we were little kids. We didn't really realize, what do you do with the jewelry? So if you were my friend in school, you were wearing like some old lady's wedding ring, you know what I mean? We had it everywhere. So my mom went into my sock drawer, she was doing my laundry, and she found a mound of jewelry in there, and she brought it into the jewelry store to get it appraised, and she almost got arrested. So I showed up home from school one day, and there's a man and a woman sitting with my mom in the living room, and they have this binder with pictures in it, and they're talking about $90,000 in burglaries. That's what happens when you start taking jewelry, right? So I'm, as you can imagine, sitting there going, I don't know anything about any burglaries. And my shirt is going ching, 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 and I can feel it. I can almost hear it. Like, holy crap, how are you going to get out of this one? And then the man looks at me, and he smiles, and he goes, Lauri, we've been here at your house for a while before you got home from school, and I found this up in your room. And he's kind of smiling, and he unfolds it, and it says, Dear Kim, do you want to do some burglaries today? Love, Lauri, with a big heart at the bottom. So I'm like, okay, that's my criminal career, really tough. And it's so funny because I was telling this story at the Newport Alano Club where I lived like 10 years ago, and Kim's sober, and she's in the audience, and she's like, what the fuck? Because we all got arrested, you know what I mean? But it was behind that note, but we didn't see each other after that, right? Don't write notes. Anyway, so I went to juvenile hall, and I became a ward of the court because I ran from every place they put me in. They take me to group home. I'd run like the minute I got there. So I was AWOL, suicide risk, and all these other things. And I got really skilled at getting like honor roll in juvie, like staying out mopping the halls so I can get popcorn and stay out a little late. I became like the queen of the juvenile hall ward or whatever. You know what I mean? But I loved the kids that I was with. They were like the kids in the group home, And at some point, they took a bunch of girls from juvie, they had a new group home, and they shoved us all in there together. So I was with girls I knew, and I stayed at that group home for a minute, and they put me in a continuation school, which I love continuation school because the whole school's like a smoke pit, right? You just show up, and your people are there, and the smoke's there, and you immediately feel comfortable, right? So I'm at the continuation school one day, and this old jalopy pulls in, and there's like Janis Joplin blasting out the window, and it's a bunch of bikers in this car. And the bikers get out, and they let this chick out, this beautiful girl, and then the bikers take off. And this chick like didn't talk to anyone. She had like an arrogance like above it all, and she just went about her way. And I thought, you know what? I need to know this chick. She seems pretty cool with all these bikers protecting her too. And so I went down to the beach, and I got some cocaine. Now, I had tried cocaine, and I didn't like it because it talked too much, and I don't need to talk anymore. You know what I mean? But I got some cocaine, and I brought it in for her, and I brought it in the next day, and I said, hey, do you want to do some coke? And she's like, cool, yeah, definitely. Meet me in the bathroom and bring a cup of water and a cigarette, but don't light the cigarette. And I went to the bathroom, and she pulled out a switchblade, and everybody split because they thought she was going to stab someone, but she was just cleaning her knife. But anyway, the bathroom emptied out, and we went into a stall, and she pulled out a rig, and she said, I'm going to shoot up. You want to shoot up? And the only thing that went through my mind was, if it kills me, fine, because I've been trying to kill myself unsuccessfully for quite a while. And if it doesn't, I might like it, right? So of course I want to shoot up. So we start shooting up on a regular basis. She becomes like my best friends. We were shooting up coke and cannabinol. And I don't know if you guys know what cannabinol is. Maybe the people with more sobriety, because it went away, but it was elephant tranquilizer, and you shouldn't be shooting it up. But we were just doing a teeny little bit. And it was good stuff, So the funny thing is, like, when you think back on stuff, she was my best friend. Her whole family was white supremacist bikers, and my whole family was Jews, and we were inseparable. We were always together. Whether we were at her house or my house with the swastikas, it didn't matter. Because when you have drugs, all that stuff goes by the wayside, right? So I remember when we were first using, we used to pick up this lady's down at the beach. She was like 30. She seemed like an old lady. She was next Playboy bunny. She was still hot at 30, which surprised us. You know, she had a lot of kids hanging around her house, and she had cocaine. And at the end of the night, when things would start to die down, this lady would take me into the bathroom with her. And when we first went in the bathroom, she'd be normal. But as the night went on, she'd be like, check the shower. And I'd be like, check the shower. I remember the first time I'm like, holy shit, if someone's been in the shower the whole time we've been in the bathroom? And I checked the shower and there's nobody in the shower and the door doesn't open. And a little while later, she's like, check the shower. And I realized, like, if I don't check the shower, she's not gonna give me any more drugs. So I became the shower checker. I'm gonna keep on checking the shower. You just keep on doling out the drugs, right? But I thought, there must be like some cookie in your brain that breaks down over time when you're using drugs. And when you've lost your cookie, it's gone. Like, don't use anymore. Like, it's time to stop. And if I ever get that way, I will stop. But I got to tell you, by the time I'm 18 and I'm getting off probation and I'm finally being released from the hold of the courts, I am so crazy. Like, when I'm using cocaine, I think they're after me. I don't know who they are, but they're after me. They could be anywhere. They could be in the fridge, behind pictures, under the couch. They are after me. And I will walk around the house or wherever I am, the hotel room, with a knife, a gun, anything that I've got. And usually it was not much, because I would walk around with knives, and when I would get better towards the end of the night, I would put the knife in the mattress and I forget it was there. And I ran out of knives. So sometimes it'd just be hairspray, because if they're coming in with like shotguns, I'm gonna have my hairspray and I'm gonna be like, shh. I don't know who they are. Are they cops? Are they feds? What are they coming for? I don't even have any drugs left. I don't know, but they're coming, right? So I'm really crazy. So I think by the time I get off probation, I'm gonna go back to New York, where people use social, acid, and mescaline, and I'm gonna clean up my life. You know what I mean? I didn't know anyone that shot up in New York, but there are people that shoot up in New York, But in my little mind, I thought, yeah, we used to drink a lot and do a lot of meth and acid, and it'll be a chill life over in New York, and I won't get into all this trouble. And so I started to get a will to live. So I moved back to New York, and what happened was I didn't shoot up because I didn't know anyone that had a rig, and I didn't know anyone who did that, but I drank a lot, I smoked a lot of weed, I took a lot of acid, and I stayed at the bar, and I learned to shoot pool really good, because they stay open till like 4 a.m, close for a couple of hours at the bar, and reopen again. So I'm seeing this guy in New York, and I have this failure to bond ever since I was really little. Like, I don't bond to people because I don't get attached to people because I don't do getting hurt, right? So I could hang out with someone, I could think they're fun, but I'm not gonna go all crazy in my mind, think we're getting married or anything like that, right? So I'm seeing some guy, and I always weighed around 90-something pounds. And one day I look down, I'm at his place, he's off to work. I look down and there's a bump on my stomach. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And I start thinking about my family again. It just hits me like, oh my God, I could have my own family. Like, I could have my own baby, and I could raise my baby with love and like not hit her, and like start a whole new family of love, you know what I mean? And I could have my own baby, my own family, and all that crap that happened with my family, I could just forget about it, and we'll start over again. And I start thinking about this guy who's about to come home from work, and I'm like, if he finds out I'm a junkie and I've been shooting up, he'll take my baby away. I've seen these things. He'll go to social services and he'll get my baby taken away, and I can't have that. So I split immediately from that place and went back to California pregnant. And I called my mom, and she's like, oh, hell no, you're not raising a baby. You need to get an abortion. So I found some anti-abortionist lady. I moved in with this friend of hers, and she had like 5 kids, and I was like a nanny taking care of her kids, and I was semi-sober, right? I wasn't going to meetings. I wasn't shooting up, but I was still smoking weed and beer, but that was sober to me. You know what I mean? So I'm pregnant. I'm going to Lamaze classes, and everything's cool, and this girl finds out that I'm back in town, and I'm staying at this lady's house taking care of her kids. And I answer the door to my friend Angie, and she walks in, she drops a bindle and a needle on the table. And I'm 6 months pregnant. My baby's moving in my stomach. I'm going along with this whole prenatal thing. And when she drops that on the table, without the program, I lose the ability to make a choice. I lose the ability to make a choice, especially about the people I love. And if you've ever been in this situation, it's like, do it before you convince yourself not to do it. Fill it now. Get it in the needle now. Give it to me now. I want to go first, right? Give it to me first. I need it now. Like, I'm sick again. Like, I need it now. And I put it in my arm, and all of a sudden my stomach goes hard. My baby's not moving. My stomach's like cement. And I start crying and like freaking out. Like, please tell me I did not kill my baby. My baby's not moving. And I remember the old lady down at the beach, the 30-year-old that we used to party with, got pregnant at some point. And she was pregnant and using drugs. And she told us that The baby has a different bloodstream. It's not affected by your drug use. And all of a sudden, I'm screaming, I'm freaking out, I'm trying to call the hospital. My baby starts to move again. And I think, oh my God, she's right. The baby's okay. So I continue to shoot up through my entire pregnancy. I give birth to my daughter at the hospital and they don't check her and they send her home with me. And the lady kicked me out of the house. She knew I was slamming, right? And so now I'm living in hotels and motels on Harbor Boulevard, which is like the main strip where we live. And I'm on welfare. My welfare check's like $200 every 2 weeks. And I'm using it up on the first night because I need to get a quarter. And I'm always like, get a quarter, just a quarter. If I come back, don't sell me any. Like I'm crazy with the dealer. Like, don't sell me any if I come back. And then I come back and I'm like, I'm your best freaking customer. What do you mean you're not going to sell me any, right? So I start an argument with him. I'm like total Jekyll and Hyde. He throws his stuff at me and I don't have enough money for Similac, diapers, nothing, right? And I hung out with a lot of guys that did time in prison. Those were my friends, right? My sisters are both drug addicts. My little sister was like a punk rocker that would take whatever you have. My older sister was like a DJ at a place called Deja Vu. And she would dress up and wear high heels and skirts and hang out with a lot of rich guys. She was my polar opposite. And my friends were these guys from prison that would do heroin. And I had tried heroin. And frankly, I thought it made me throw up and act too nice. You know what I mean? I thought this is just not for me being the sweet and stuff, but you know what I mean? After a while of having no welfare check in the morning, I thought, you know what, Lauri? You should start doing heroin to get off coke and save some money. Like, seriously, if you could just shoot up some heroin and go to sleep, you could save the rest of your money and you could wake up in the morning and still have money for baby food and stuff. So I started doing heroin as a detox savings plan, right? And that was the plan. So about 3 weeks into my heroin use, it started getting really crazy, right? And my sister calls me one night, my older sister, the one that I thought something weird was going on with my dad. And she's like hanging out with all these rich guys, and we didn't get along at all since the gun hiding event. But she said, Lauri, I was supposed to make a lot of money tonight with these rich guys, and I can't do it. I can't go. I got something else going on. But I asked them, do they want to take my little sister? And they said they'll take you. And they're really nice guys, and they got a lot of money. So if you want to go do this thing I was supposed to do, you'll get paid a lot of money and you'll really like these guys. So I'm like, all I heard, like Scott Redmond, a guy that had a lot of time in the program, used to say is that I missed the middle on this thing. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm just like, yeah, I'll do it. I heard money, right? So yeah, I'll do it. Okay, so she sends a cab to my house. She says, they're gonna take you to this restaurant. You'll meet the owner and he'll take care of you. So this cab takes me to this restaurant down south from where we live. And I meet the owner of the restaurant and he's like, look, I'll grab some lobsters, some steak for you. We'll smoke some opium back at my house. But before we do that, you need to take these keys, take that Mercedes out in the parking lot, drive it to the golf course. The room key is on the seat. Go into this golf course room and wait for my 3 friends. They're doctors. They're really nice. They'll treat you really nice. And when you come back, we'll eat at my place and we'll smoke some opium and I'll send you home in the cab. And I get into this brand new Mercedes with the sticker still on the window. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a good job. You know what I mean? Gonna get a buttload of money. I'm gonna smoke some opium, we're gonna eat. Yeah, it sounds great. So I get to this golf course room, this little room, and I'm sitting on the bed, and literally these 3 men walk in one by one, and they bitch at me for a few minutes about prostitution and AIDS. I guess they thought I was a prostitute, and they were like, don't tell Ollie we didn't do anything. He might get offended. Just tell him we said thank you. And get yourself out of this before you die. You are going to get AIDS, and you're going to get sick and die, right? And I'm just listening to them. And each one that walks through leaves money on the table and they walk out, right? So then when the last one leaves and gives me that whole Ollie shtick, so I'm like, okay. So I get up and I look at the table and I count the money. It's like $800. I'm like, shoot, for $800, I would have done something. You know, seriously? That's 2 months worth of welfare checks right there, right? So the next day I go back to my hotel room and I open up the drawer, and the drawer is like a crossroads for me because in the hotel room drawer, there's usually a Yellow Pages and a Bible. So on that day, it was like, are you going to pray about it, even though you're Jewish, right? Are you going to pray about it and make it go away, or are you going to do it? So I immediately go to the Yellow Pages, and I'm looking at prostitution. It's not in there. But I find some call service thing in there, and I call them, and they're like, yeah, it's Christmas time. We have extra calls. I don't know what that's about, but can you fax us your driver's license? Because we don't have technology yet. This is like the 80s, right? So I fax them from the motel office a picture of my driver's license. They're like, yeah, you look good. Okay, we'll call you when we're ready. So I get this call to go to this house down south from where we live, again, in a really nice neighborhood. And I call my little sister and I go, Allison, I need you to drive me to this place. I'm gonna make some money tonight. I'll split the money and the drugs with you. Just give me a ride, right? So get mom's car. So she gets mom's car, picks me up and takes me down to this really nice house. And it's Christmas time, and all of the other houses have like lights on them and menorahs and stuff, or mostly lights where we live, right? But this house is dark. It's darker than hell, right? And I look at my sister and I'm like, if I don't come out, because I'm scared shitless, if I don't come out, call someone. Don't call the police and don't call mom. Just call somebody we know and tell them Lauri's in this house, right? So she agrees, and she's waiting out there, and I give her a time frame, and I go up to the door, and I hear this like whoosh sound, and the door opens, and it's this old guy in a wheelchair. He looks like Albert Einstein hair everywhere, and he's like, get in the house and shut the door. I mean, he's really mean, and I get in this house, and it's like, it's an isolated house with almost nothing in it. It's like, there's like a computer taken apart on the table, and there's no furniture and except for one couch, and just like this really barren place. And he starts telling me, yeah, I was shot in Vietnam, got shot with shrapnel. I'm thinking, shit, there's guns in this house. There's definitely guns in this house, right? So I'm freaking out. And finally we get to the point where like, he's a paraplegic and he can't have sex, and he explains that, but he wants me to take my clothes off. And since I've never done this before, I'm so rigid and weird. Like as soon as I take my clothes off, he asks me to put them back on and throws a bunch of money at me and is like, get the hell out of here, right? So I leave that place and I'm like, holy shit, that was scary, right? And but something about that house and that guy like freaked me out. I always wanted to be like a psychology major if I ever went to school. Like what drives people and why is this guy alone in this place, right? Well, this guy keeps on calling for me from the call service. And now he's paying me just to go out to eat with him, just go to the movies, whatever. But what happens is a couple of weeks later, I start getting really sick from the heroin, and I can't even wait for the call service anymore. Like I need heroin in the morning. They don't call till the nighttime. So I had seen a bunch of girls out on the street, and I thought I'm just going to go out on the street where, the girls are out there. Because I remember one day I was going to pick up with my friend Brian, and we saw a girl hitchhiking, and she was hitchhiking in that direction. Then we went to pick up, and then we were on the way back, and then she's hitchhiking in that direction. And I'm like, Brian, this chick has no idea where she's going. And he's like, Lauri, she's not going anywhere. She's working the streets. So I remembered what Brian said, and I thought I could get out on the streets and I could make some money during the day until the call service calls. And I never went to the call service again. The streets were the beginning of the end for me. My mom took my daughter away from me, which was a good thing, because when I was on the streets, my daughter was in a motel room with some of my friends that just got out of prison. And although I tell you I trust these guys with my life, it's just not a good place for a baby. Like she should be watching Barney or something, not sitting around with a bunch of guys watching them get high, right? So my mom took my kid away. And I remember in the beginning of working the streets where I was so decepted, by my childhood. Like when my dad was beating me, I separated my mind from my body. Like it didn't affect me anymore, what you did to my body. So I was numb from it. Like I couldn't even re-engage with it. But I thought, you know what? I'm making more money than my parents, and I don't have to do shit, right? But what I didn't get is I'm selling my soul out here, and I don't realize it. I'm slowly disconnecting from myself. And by the time I had disconnected, I was just completely gone. It was it was November 1986. It was Thanksgiving time, and some man pulled a knife on me. Now, I got to tell you, I'd been kidnapped. I've been raped. I don't talk about this shit that happened to me on the street, but I wrote about it in my book, and I published my book in case anybody else ever got in the situation, just so they could know there's a way out. But this guy pulled a knife on me. I think it was Thanksgiving. He pulls this big knife on me, and he puts it up to my neck in the car, and I was like, you want to rape me? You know how many times I've been freaking raped? Go ahead, rape me. And that guy looked at me like he didn't want to touch me. Like he was scared that I didn't care, that I was like, go. I could see my soul in that man's eyes, because he just left. He said, get the fuck out of my car, and he left. And it was January 5th, 1987, and I was at 5th and Harbor where I worked the streets. And there's a bus bench there. And it was almost the 5 o'clock hour. And I'm at the bus bench because I spend all day working the streets, because I keep on needing to get more to forget what just happened and to get the sickness out of me, right? And just to keep on forgetting about my kid being gone, everything that I've been through, how worthless my life is, right? So I'm at the bus stop, the bus stop bench, and this white car pulls up, and I get in the back seat, and there's two guys in the front seat. And all of a sudden we jump on the freeway. The freeway's right there. But at this time in my life, I had been on the street so long that I realized, you're not supposed to get on the freeway. You're supposed to go into a motel or a hotel or an alley or a park, but definitely not on the freeway, right? And I see the driver's eyes in the mirror, like he's crazy, like he's trying to get somewhere. And he looks like he's freaking high out of his mind and insane. And I could just see his beady eyes in the mirror looking out, like all nervous. And the other guy is like focused outside of the car. Like he doesn't even want to be in the car. And I'm like, oh my God, Lauri, you cannot go through another situation. You cannot do this again. We can't do this again. So I start looking around. There's cars everywhere. Like I said, that's how I remember it was 5 o'clock, because there was cars everywhere. And I jumped out of the back seat and into the front to try and grab the steering wheel, because I figured if I could grab the steering wheel and yank it, they'll crash into the car next to us. There may be a big pile up on the freeway, but I'm ready for it. I need to get out of this car before I get into this situation again, right? So I go to grab the wheel, and the guy on the right side sees me fly up, and his fist connects with my head before I can even get to the wheel. And then almost like the cartoons, like where you see lights in your head, it was like boom, and then gone. And I wake up, and we're in a clearing in the woods somewhere in a canyon road, and they get out of the front seat and into the back, and the driver has a gun, and they're talking about a prostitute had killed a gang member, and they're talking in broken English. A prostitute had killed a gang member in the neighborhood recently, and their call to action was to find a prostitute on the street, rape her all night, and then kill her in the morning to make due for their friend that had been killed. And I was that girl that they picked, right? So they're in the back seat with me. This guy's got a gun, and after hours of being raped and beaten and sodomized and having that freaking gun in my head, I'm like, oh my God, Lauri. Like the one's yelling, the driver still wanted to kill me. The other guy changed his mind. He's like, she's not the one, Simon. She's not the one. We can't be doing this. And the guy's like, she's going to fucking die tonight. And I start realizing, you know what? They don't realize who they have here, because I want to die. I've always wanted to die. Like, just freaking kill me. So I realize we're all on the same team here. So get them to freaking kill you before they rape you again, Lauri. So I start screaming, kill me! Like at the top of my lungs, kill me! Like, freaking put the gun in my head and pull the freaking trigger. Like, make it stop. Make it end. Make it all go dark. Let me forget about my kid. Let me forget about my dad. Let me forget about my life. Let me forget that I am a worthless piece of shit that has nothing. Just fucking kill me. And I screamed so loud that they got scared, not enough to kill me, but someone's gonna freaking hear her now. And now somebody's gonna come. So the next thing I know, I'm like waking up in the gravel in the bushes on the side of the road, and somebody's trying to pick me up. And I don't know who it is, but I see these really big men's boots, and I could see this van behind him and exhaust pouring out of the van. And I see the doors open as if I'm gonna go in that passenger door, and there's a white cloth seat cover on that seat. And I'm just registering everything. And I look down, and there's blood all over me. And I've only got a torn shirt on. That's all I have left. And the first thing that goes through my mind is, because I could feel this guy's trying to pick me up and put me in this car. I don't know who I am, where I am, right? I don't know who he is. I don't know where I am. But the first thing that goes through my mind is, I am going to get blood on this man's seat in his car, and he's going to beat me up. And I can't take getting beat up one more time. So I look at the seat covers, I look at myself, I'm like, no, please put me down. I'm okay. I swear to God, I'm okay. I'll be okay. I could call someone. I'll be fine. Please put me down. Please stop. Please don't take me, please. And this man picks me up. He was like, if you saw the Green Mile, he was like that. He was this huge African-American man that picked me up like I was like a doll. And he picked me up to his eyes, and he held me in front of his face, and he had tears rolling down his face. And he said, please let me help you. Please just stop fighting me. Please, just let me help you. Just let me get you to a hospital, please. And I think I registered something in the pain in that man's eyes, hit my heart so hard. And for the first time in a long time, I would never take help. But I was broken enough on that night to take help. Because I figured, if you help me, I owe you. And I don't owe anybody anything anymore. So I don't need anyone's help. I was broken. So I said, okay, you can take me to the hospital. So this man took me to the hospital, and he must have paid for a cab back, because they're ready to check me out. And they said, there's a cab waiting for you. You need to tell the cab where to take you. And the only place I know is Fifth and Harbor, because I need to go back into Fifth and Harbor, and I need to turn a trick to get some more dope so that I could forget what just happened to me. And that's how it was for a while, just to forget. And I was so broken. The next day I called my mom, and when she answered the phone, I said, Mom, I need help. And she hung up on me, and rightly so, because I've done a lot of bad stuff to my mom. I've hit my mom, I've stolen from my mom, you name it, right? And then I called Tom, the guy from the call service, the wheelchair guy, the first guy that I ever went to see. Now, I called Tom because I learned over the years from Tom visiting me that Tom was an abused kid that left home when he was 14. And his parents used to make him eat with the dog on the floor while the rest of the family sat at the table. And he left at 14 and he never returned. And he used to run the streets with a bunch of hoodlums, but he joined the Marines for 3 hots and a cot. And then he got shot with shrapnel, and he was living his life alone in that house that I showed up to on Christmas. And when he met me, he had a purpose. It was like, save Lauri. So he would constantly come and find me out on the streets and talk to me about, you need to clean up off this shit. He had a lot of friends in Nam that were addicted to morphine, right? And I took a lot of money from Tom for rehab that I never went to. But I called Tom that day and I said, Tom, I need help. He said, Lauri, I will take you wherever you want to go, but I will not give you one more dime. So I said, okay, Tom, please pick me up. And he picked me up and he took me to this little detox down south where we live. And he couldn't get his wheelchair up the stairs. So he just dropped me there, right? And he told him, take care of my girl. I'll be back, right? So I went into this place and they told me, we're going to have group later on. Go in this little room, settle in, and we'll call you when we're ready. Just go in there and rest. And I went in this little room and it had like you guys know, like matching bedspreads and little doilies on the tables. And I'm like, you think I deserve a rest? You know what kind of person I am? Do you know what kind of mom I am? Do you have any idea what kind of person I am? You think I deserve a rest? If anything, I thought I deserved more punishment. So I didn't even sit on the bed. I'm like, I am not your rest person, okay? So I collapsed on the floor, and I'm, for the first time in a long time, I'm like in a praying position. And I said, God, please help me. I don't know what help looks like. I can't really even tell you what help means. I don't know what that is, but if you could just be with me now. And then my head kicked in and said, Lauri, you think God's listening to you? You remember all the times you made a deal with God, every time you were in jail, every time you were in juvenile hall, every time you thought you were going to die and you wouldn't live past this day, you made a deal, something like, God, you get me out of this and I'll hang out with different kids, I'll go to school, I'll get a job. And God always got you out. You never paid up on your deal with God. God's not listening to you anymore. But I'm here to tell you that was January 6, 1987, and there's nothing you could do to make God stop listening to you or loving you. But it took me a long, long time to get that, right? So I stopped praying that day. I stayed there for a week, and then I went back to Tom's house, a trick, for like 3 weeks while we waited for our opening at recovery home, and I was going to stay there a month. And during this time, my mom tells me she can't watch my kid anymore. She needs to put her in foster care. So I got to decide, I'm now checked into the rehab for the month. Am I going to leave rehab and get my kid back? Or am I going to let her go into the dreaded system that I came out of, right? I never wanted my kid in the system. But I also knew if I checked out of that rehab, I would use over anything because that's how I am. You know what I mean? I use because it's sunny. I use because it's raining. I use because I can't find her shoe. You know what I mean? So I'm going to use, right, if I leave here. So we went and we checked out foster homes all over the place. And we met this single mom that said, you know what? You get a year sober and I'll give you your kid back. So why don't you stay in that place for a while and get yourself checked out good, stay clean and sober, and come and get your kid back. So I agreed that I would stay that period of time. And I cried myself to sleep every night because I didn't have my kid with me. But my mom said, you know what, Lauri? She's 4. And you have broken this kid's heart so many times. Please get it right this time. And that was the first time I listened to my mom because, my kid at 4 knew when I had heroin balloons in my mouth. She knew what cocaine looked like. She listens to Creedence. You know what I mean? It's just like, this was not a typical 4-year-old. And I knew I had put this kid through hell, right? So I end up staying there a year. And for the first time in my life, I was in group therapy there. I start talking about the dad and the gun situation, which I never talked about. And let me tell you, my therapist looked concerned, to say the least. And she grabbed me by my shoulders that day and she said, Lauri, now that we've been talking about this, you never have to use again. And I got it. You're only as sick as your secrets. These secrets of my family that I've been carrying for all these years about my dad and my sister and the gun had been dragging me down like a bag of rocks. And over time, it started to lighten up, And I get ready I'm in this place. I have a juvenile jail panel because I want to go see my people and see how they're doing and help them get clean. I have like a narc in the park panel. I have all these different things going on. Secretary of H&I. I'm scared to death that I'm going to use again. I move out of the place and I get my daughter back out of foster care. And before I move out, they tell me you need to get a job and you need to be honest on your job application and you need to do something legal now. And I'm like, yeah, how's that going to work? I was in sales. I sold my body for about $200. I worked myself down to $10 with group discounts. You want to hire me? Like, seriously, no, nobody's going to hire me, right? I can't be honest on my job application. I did not tell them this. I went out there and I lied and I said I knew computer systems and I didn't. But they taught us to interview, like strong handshake, eye contact, and I got a lot of jobs. I got hired a lot. I got fired a lot, right? But I learned a lot of computer systems. And the first couple, I couldn't even find the power button on them, right? So I got fired a lot. And But I started getting better at them, and I started getting certified in them, and I got my daughter back, and I started a meeting at my house. The minute I moved out, I was scared that I would use again, and I knew if you guys weren't coming to me, I wouldn't be going to you. I'd start eating Del Taco and watching TV a lot. You know what I mean? This is what I'm going to do left to my own resources. So there was a men's group called Dog on the Roof in my area, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but they were real military-like. They'd choose your sponsor. They'd choose who you were going to date, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I hate Dog on the Roof. I'm starting a pussy on the porch meeting at my house. Piss off Dog on the Roof. So, yeah, it was actually in the directory for a minute, but the GSR committee came over and they're like, we don't understand, this isn't appropriate in the directory. And I explained the whole Dog on the Roof resentment, but they were like, no, it's still not appropriate. So we took it out for like a year and we put it back in as POTP, and it's still there now. And what they don't know won't hurt them. We have chips with kitty cats on them and stuff. We're long, strong, right? So, but for the minute that we didn't have it in the meeting, one day I'm at the Pussy on the Porch meeting, and it's all the same girls, and this other girl walks in for the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, she's like, my name's Pam, and I'm an addict. I'd love to get what you guys have, but I have a 12-year-old back at the crack house I just left. And what am I supposed to do? Like, get clean and sober and leave my kid at the crack house? And a trick drove me here. Like, how am I going to work all this out? It's really special that you guys got it, but I can't get this. I can't do this thing. I don't have the resources to do this thing. And I remember going to my room and talking to God for a minute, and I felt so blessed because I had my daughter back from foster care. I had a cool job. We had this cool place to live. She had bunk beds in her room. So after the meeting, I told her, you know what? Go back to the crack house, get your daughter, have the trick, drop your daughter off here. I'll tell you where there's a sober living down the street that I can get you into with the trick's money, of course. And we'll do great. You know what I mean? I'll keep her for a month and then you can come and get her back. So the trick drops her kid off and she goes to this place that I tell her to go to, right? So I've got her kid. Her kid's like my karma. I tell her to stay home. She tells me to F off. She steals everything, including my rent money that she sees, right? And I love this kid. I'm like, it's like raising yourself, Lauri. How is this, right? So about 2 months into it, I call over to the rehab or the sober living to see how her mom's doing because she hasn't been over for a minute. And they say, no, that girl relapsed. She left here like 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Relapse. I got her kid. And they're like, we don't do kids. We do sobriety. Why don't you call like social services and see what they have to say about it, right? So I call social services and they're like, well, you need to drop the kid off. And I'm like, drop the kid off. And in my mind, I'm going, I'm not the person to drop a kid off at a building. That's not me. Anybody maybe but me, right? You picked the wrong girl. So I said, is there anything else that we can do? And they said, you could apply to be a foster mom. If you could be a foster mom, you can keep her. So I said, okay, what do I got to do? They give me this whole rigmarole. I go through all this paperwork. I get a blood test. I do TB tests. I show up. I write my family history. I show up to this thing and they get me in this little room and they open up a file and they're like, prostitution, receiving stolen goods, assault and battery. Like, this is seriously not what we want in a foster parent. But if you go home and you get that kid and you bring her back to our facility, that'd be great. And when you get 7 years clean and sober, if anybody ever wants to be a foster parent, when you get 7 years clean and sober, come back, reapply. And I get home and I'm like traumatized all the way home. We don't have cell phones yet. So again, this is the 80s. I got a phone list on my fridge. So I start calling people, boom, 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 boom. What am I going to do? All the girls from the Pussy on the Porch, right? And I get this one girl, she works as a paralegal. And she's like, look, if you file for guardianship right now, they can't take her. I don't care if you just submit the paper tomorrow. They can't take her when you're in the process of guardianship. She sticks. So I called the trick up and I'm like, here's the situation. You drop the kid, you drop the mom's gone, I got the kid, and the kid's either going into the system or you got to pay for guardianship. So he's like, look, I got a wife and kids. I don't even want to mess with this shit anymore. I'm coming over to give you a check for guardianship. So he gives me the check. I win the guardianship. And it was a really, a tumultuous relationship because as Shannon told me after a while, you know what? You're the mom person. I don't like the mom person. I will never do what you want me to do. The mom dropped me here and I don't do mom. You know what I mean? But over time, we started to bond as sisters. And I remember I did some of the craziest crap when I was newly sober. I had this badge that said probation because I used to do the juvenile hall panel. And Shannon was real upset after her mom left. And I said, honey, I understand, how hard this is when your mom left you here. She said, screw my mom. I'm not worried about my mom. I left my hamster back at the Samoans crack house and nobody's feeding it. And I started thinking about it and I'm like, shoot, because my dog was everything to me. And I went into my bedroom and I put my hair up and I put my smart glasses on. I put my probation badge on and I'm like, Shannon, we're going to get your hamster. And I got her in the car with me. I had this little Pinto and she was scared to death. She's like, don't do this. You can't go in there. They have guns in there. I'm like, I'm going to get your hamster. I parked her around the block. I went into this really bad gang neighborhood. I get to the door. There's like this big Samoan guy at the door, a bunch of them sitting on the couch. I'm like, probation officer Burns here to get the minor's belongings. They let me look at each other like, what the hell? All right, let her in. I go into the room. I see a crap load of cigarette butts and ashtrays and clothes. And in the corner, I see a little teeny cage with a little hamster still alive in it. We wrap the clothes around the thing, and I walk out very carefully. Thank you, men. Leave. And I couldn't freaking believe. When I think about that now, I'm like, are you insane? What went through your mind? But I love kids, you know? And after a while, we really started the bond. By the time she was 16, her mom died of a cocaine overdose and drowned in a bathtub. And Shannon had been to all my Pussy on the Porch meetings in the house, listening to them, whether she was sitting in them or the other room. And she knew what this disease does to you. And she got to realize that it wasn't that her mom hated her, it was that she was struck with our disease and she couldn't recover. So by the time she's 18, she's a receptionist at the computer company I'm working at, right? And everything's chill, and then she moves out and gets her own apartment. And at some point, I realized I may never be able to give my daughter a normal life because I have this whole failure to bond. I'll never get married, right? So I told my daughter, Summer, who was like, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 at the time, let's save for a year, half my paycheck for a year. Let's put it in some remote bank. You know how they allow you to auto deposit it to your bank? Let's choose some bank way out in BFE that we can't get to and put half my paycheck there. I was making $2,000 a month. We'll put $1,000 away. We'll cut off the cable. We'll take lunch to school and work. We'll share a bedroom. We'll rent the other bedroom, and we'll buy a house so we could live in a normal neighborhood where normal people live. And then you'll feel like we're normal, even though I'll never get married. And she agreed, right? So we did all that. 10 months later, I have $10,000. We start going out to look for a house to buy. And we see this brand new home builder down by where we live. And it's like when you go to the home builders that are new, you have to walk through the office to get to model A, B, and C. You guys know, right? So I go into the office. I've got a wife beater, torn up jeans, and work boots on. They're not paying any attention to me, right? With my little kid. And we walk through and I see model A is like my dream home. And I know it, but I'm scared to death. Like, I don't know about anything about interest rates, real estate. I'm a juvenile hall kid who grew up in mostly mental institutions, took my GED. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about this stuff. So I'm scared to death. So I don't say anything to the people in the office. And then we come back every weekend to where they know our names. So like, hey, Lauri, hey, Summer, are you here to see your house? And I'm like, yeah, and we walk through, and one day we show up, and there's balloons outside, and the lady says, Lauri, if you buy your house today, it's $10,000 off. I know you're scared. Go home, get your taxes. I want to see how you're doing on your taxes. If I increase your dependents, your house isn't going to cost much more than your apartment, and I can help you to change it all around. So I bring my taxes back, and by the end of the day, I'm signing paperwork on a 3-bedroom house, and I'm scared to death. And then we show up, there's no house. It's a new home builder, so they're building the house, and they're putting in the windows, and they're putting in the floors, and I'm just standing there with the Lot 76 sign just going, this is not my life, from where I walked off the streets, that I'm standing here with my kid and we're buying a house. I'm like scared to death. And we move into this brand new 3-bedroom house. We decorate the 3rd room for a girl in case she has a friend spend the night, because it's just us two at this point. And I keep on getting promoted at work. And I'm not getting promoted because I'm the best systems engineer. My friend Patrick's here with me tonight that's worked with me for years in the IT business and knows, like, I'm not the best systems engineer, but I love to talk to people and I'm happy all the time and I like to help people. So I keep on getting promoted. I go from customer engineer to systems engineer to director of IT services to where we own the freaking company, right? And my life is going insane. And every time I get bumped up or, so I reach another level, I'm like scared shitless. Like, when's the other shoe gonna drop, And at some point, my older sister and my little sister are still out there using, right? My older sister calls me and she's got a little boy named Danny. She's a single mom. And she says, Lauri, I beat Danny so bad. And I've been beating Danny. And I don't know why she calls me because she knows I don't like her, but she knows I like kids. And she said, I'm going to bring him over to your house. You're going to call the social worker so they're there when I get there. And we're going to have him taken away from me so I don't have to hit him anymore because I am going to kill him. So she shows up to my house and my little nephew's like 4 and his eyes are all red and he's all beat up. And I'm like sitting down with this social worker and my sister and I can't freaking believe it. And my nephew's in the room with my daughter. And she says, I don't like boys because my dad used to put his tongue in my mouth. And then she starts talking about the shit that happened back in the house with my dad, that at this point I thought I dreamt, that it didn't really happen. And then I see that man put my nephew in the car and take him away. And they talk about the cycle of abuse. I'm watching it occur right in front of my house because now I got taken away because someone was beating me up and now he's getting taken away. And I was so pissed off when they took him away that I would call the social services the next day and I rushed down there and I applied to be a foster mom. And they pulled out my application and they looked at it and they looked at me and I'm back in this room and I'm like, holy crap, don't tell me Don't tell me you're going to take my nephew. And the person that was looking at my file that day said, Lauri, when we say 7 years, nobody ever comes back. It's been just over 7 years since the last time you were here, and we're going to make you a foster mom. And my little sister always says, is it odd or is it God? And I'm like, yeah, that was God. Like, I'm not counting the time. I didn't remember the 7-year deal. My older sister finds out I'm going to get her kid. She gets all crazy. She goes to my anger management thing. She said, I didn't want to see him at like holidays at mom's house. I wanted them to go away. So she gets him back and she never hits him again. And thank God. And I remember I got my nephew, Danny, his first computer when he was 9 years old. And on my drive home, he called me and he said, Lauri, how do you change a CMOS password? And I'm like, what the hell? Like, does anybody even know what a CMOS is here? So anyway, Danny, yeah, a couple people. Danny now works in the IT industry with us, which is awesome. And he's grown up and his mom never hit him again. But it's 2 days before Christmas, right? After they make me a foster mom. And my kids, my nephew's back with her mom. And the phone rings and it's some lady. And she said, is this Lauri Burns? And I said, yeah. And she said, we've got you on the list as foster moms. And we got a 15-year-old that ran away from Vegas. Her dad's been molesting her. Her mom left at birth. She has no mom, and we found her out here in California from Vegas, going to school and hanging out with some other kids, and she's in the county facility right now. We're wondering, do you still have an opening at your house? And I'm like, not out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, you've got me on a freaking list? Like, are you serious? Like, I could pick up any kid anytime. I got in my car, like, before they realized, oh my God, you just called that prostitute chick. You know what I mean? Pick up this kid. And I get over there, and for the first time on the other side of the door, when she walks out, and she is so beautiful. She's 15 years old. My daughter's 15 years old. And I have a moment with God that it doesn't make sense that a person like me, like a heroin addict prostitute, could be chosen to be a foster mom. But I'm here to tell you, in this program, God does not make sense. He makes miracle after miracle after miracle. And it's crazy good, right? So, yeah, so I get her home, and And this is how God works. Like, I've got a brand new house with a room all decorated for a girl that nobody's ever slept in. And I've got a little girl that's never, ever had a mom. And I've got a little daughter that's never, ever had a sister. And she moves in with us, and we are all on fire. Like, this is the best freaking thing since sliced bread, right? And one day I walk out of my house, and there's for sale signs everywhere in the neighborhood. I'm like, where's everyone going? We all moved in here together. I know everyone on the block. So I asked my neighbor, Brian, where's everyone going? He said, Lauri, our homes have appreciated to the point where now you sell it and you buy a bigger house. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. In my mind, I should have never been here. This is the life that I thought living in the motel room where they had a separate kitchenette area rather than the hot plate was my destiny if I could make it big time. Like, being in this house, like, I'm going to sell this place, but you guys taught me how to take directions. So I get down on the lawn with the for sale sign. And some of you may not understand this because you're younger, but they told me I could believe in anything as a God. And I didn't trust the generic God. So there was a movie called Oh God with George Burns. So I've been praying to George Burns like my whole sobriety, the actor who is still alive. But George smoked, he drank, he seemed like a cool dude. So I said, George, I don't know if I'm supposed to sell this house, but if it sells within 30 days, I leave. And if it doesn't, I stay. 3 weeks later, my house sells for more than any other house in the neighborhood. I have no idea why, because I didn't do anything to my house, right? So now I got to find another house because these people are moving into my house. So I get on my motorcycle and I'm driving through the canyon and I see these really big houses. And it's like a new home builder. I think I'm going to go in there and see how they're decorating now. So I know how to decorate. When I buy my little house, so that I decorate like it in style. And I walk in and the lady that taught me to buy a house had changed jobs and she's working for the big home builder. And I walk in, she's like, oh my God, Lauri Burns, I'm going to sell you another house. And I'm like, seriously, no, I'm coming to check out the paint and see how you're decorating. And I'm going to go, I have to buy a little house. She's like, Lauri, go home, get your taxes. Let me just see where you're at right now. Let's do a couple of changes on your taxes. So by the end of the day, she's got me all switched around and I'm buying a 5-bedroom house with a loft. And I have no idea why. There's not that many of us, but God keeps on growing my house because God wants to give me more children. My daughter, who was 4 when I got sober, is 36 years old and just told me that she's going to give birth to my granddaughter. And she went to, yeah. And, she went to, yeah, And my daughter went to Columbia School of Social Work, an Ivy League school, got dual master's degrees, and that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you guys in this program, right? And she married her best friend and lives in New York City and helps kids that are disadvantaged with autism and deaf kids, right? And does advanced sign language, and I'm so proud of her. And that little girl that was left at my house when she was 12 is almost 40 years old and has 2 of my grandsons. And my daughter, Catherine, who was 15 and came from the Children's Agency, is 36 years old and lives down the street with my grandson Aiden and her husband. And oh my God, I've got the most amazing life. I have 4 kids that still live in my house. I have 36 kids, 12 grandsons, 2 granddaughters, and the 3rd one on the way, and the most amazing freaking life you could ever fucking imagine, right? And every time they call me with a new kid, it's like Christmas for me. And I remember one night I was at my house and it was really dark and I had 5 girls living in my house and I heard some noise outside of my room. And in the middle of the night, I open my bedroom door and I see one of the kids in the bathroom slamming her head on the wall, screaming because she's having flashbacks about the guys that molested her when her mom left her alone at the drug house. And I remember going into that bathroom and knowing not to turn on the light and knowing not to talk too loud and knowing not to grab her, because in that moment, in that bathroom with her, I'm 12 again and I'm in the bathroom. And my life comes full circle and I realize all the little girls come out of the room. We all huddle down around her and we talk to her about God and love in this program, because everyone in my house is in the program. We talk to her about God and love in this program in such a way that it transmits so much light on that darkness in that dark room that it couldn't exist anymore. And she finally let out a gasp and just reached out and hugged everyone. And it was like we went down to the garage for a cigarette. I usually don't approve smoking at 15, but you know what? Shit, there are nights when it calls for a cigarette. You know what I mean? We're all going to go out down to the garage and we're all going to smoke together. This brought it up a couple notches. So when we get down there, I walk outside and I realize when I was a child and I thought God punished me for something I did in a past life, He loved me so much that He blessed me for what I would be in this life, because it's in the times that I pick up a kid and I take them home and they're in that kind of darkness and I know the path out, because I've walked that road, that I wouldn't give up a day of my life. Not with my dad, not on the streets, nothing. Because I have had every kind of kid come through my door that needed every kind of experience that I had been through. And I love my freaking life, every single day of it. And it's the promises: would not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door in it, would comprehend the word serenity and know peace. No matter how far down the scale, we will see how our experience can benefit others, right? So, yeah, my life is crazy good, and I feel so blessed. And as at some point I realized, I told my sponsor, I feel like God saved my life on that canyon road for a reason. And she's like, Lauri, you got freaking 20 kids. This was a while ago, right? You got freaking 20 kids. Yeah, He saved your life for a reason. I'm like, no, I met my family when I was 12 in a group home, or 13 in a group home. That is my family. That's like my brother, my sister, right? That I'm not doing anything you wouldn't do. God meant for me to do something bigger. And I had this little God box and I started writing notes to George, like, why did you save my life? Like, what can I do? Show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And what I find out is I get signed up to be on the foster care advisory board. There's only 3 foster parents in the county, but they're picking me because when they call with a bad situation, every other foster parent says, hell no. And Lauri says, oh yeah, bring them over. I'll come get them right now, right? So they sign me up on the board and these 2 men walk in and they're talking about 2 kids that left foster care, or 3 kids that left foster care, and they say they lost them. And I'm sitting at this table with a bunch of probation officers and social workers, so I'm not talking. But I'm thinking, what the hell does that mean they lost them? And they start talking about emancipation. I went home and Googled emancipation, and I find out that 65% of kids leaving foster care are going to be homeless on their 18th birthday, and I go crazy. I'm like, this in America? Kids are going homeless. The social workers know it. The probation officers know it. The judges know it. I am so pissed. I call my best friend crying. I'm like, you need to Google emancipation. She Googles it. We're crying. I'm like, she's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, we got to do something because nobody else is doing anything. So we get on LegalZoom. We start this little charity. I remember one man told me that Martin Luther King talked in such a way that he could transmit his vision to the hearts and the minds of the people in such a way that they would feel his vision in their heart and they could see it in their mind. And even though it didn't exist, if you could get someone to that level, they will follow you. And another man said, Lauri, if you take a bunch of fleas and you put them in a jar like bugs, they'll jump up and down. They'll hit their head on the top of the jar. And when you let those fleas out of that jar, they will never jump tall again for fear of hitting their heads. And he said, Lauri, you are living your life like you're still in the jar. You need to jump big. That stuff that happened to you happened in the past. You're here now. We're working into your future. That's not going to happen again. Jump big in life. Do everything you want to do. Don't hold yourself back. And then another lady, I was talking to this old psychic lady, and she looked down, and then she looked up at me, and she was like, very serious. And she said, Lauri, one day you're going to be a little girl swinging on a swing, and the next day you're going to be an old lady. Your life is going to go by like that. Make sure you do what you were here to do before your life passes you by. And that's all she said, and it scared the hell out of me, right? So I go out on this thing. We start this little charity. We start talking about kids leaving foster care. Within a month, we have $400. We cry all the way to the bank. Within 10 months, we have $180,000. We buy this little house. It's like a 3-bedroom house. All these people are following us. They say, this isn't good enough. They knock it down. They build up a 6-bedroom house. And we take 6 kids off the street that are homeless. We give them all their own custom designed room. And we say, we're going to recreate your dreams. One wants to be a doctor. One wants to be a lawyer to protect other kids. We're like, we'll do it. We send out letters everywhere. Money comes in from everywhere. These kids are like, their dreams are revived. And I'm so happy. And at this point, I'm running technology at Northrop Grumman, like an hour from my house. I'm like the technology director at one of the departments. And I'm telling my people at work, there's like 25,000 kids leaving every year. I'm only helping 6 of them. And one of the guys at work, he's very smart. He's like a Zuckerberg type. He's like, you know what? We could create a shelters.com, like hotels.com online. I can do it for you real quick. So he gets it going. We got shelters all over the United States where any kid could access the library and put in a shelter. And then I told him, you know what, Matthew, like kids don't have, homeless kids would rather have a cell phone than a sandwich. They'd rather steal a SIM card than have a sandwich, right? So he's like, well, I can make it work on cell phones for $15,000. And I'm like, I don't have $15,000. The very next day, I get this check in the mail. It says, I was going to give you $10,000 last year, and I forgot, and it's almost this year. So here's $20,000. Do something good with it from some lady I don't even know. And I'm like, Matthew, I got $15,000. He goes, give me 3 weeks. It's still running all over the nation, right? Someone says to me, Lauri, you need to come to Venice Beach. There's a bunch of homeless kids out here. They're all over the beach. They're all homeless. They need your help. I'm like, that's an hour from home, and I'm already driving during the week to go to work, but I'll come and look, and if God wants it, it'll be. And I go out there, and I walk into this place that's feeding kids like pizza and giving them sandwiches and clothes twice a week and then sending them back out to the street. And I'm like sitting there, and I sit down with 2 kids, and I'm like, what happened to you guys? And the kid looks at me and he goes, well, when I left my foster home, this was the only place. And I'm like, no. I was like, I was choking on my food. I just walked outside because I didn't want the kids to see me. And I'm like, there's no freaking way that all these kids are from foster care. And I got so pissed, I started talking about it in Venice Beach. And some man in the program gave me keys to a brand new building. And he said, build it, Lauri, and they will come. So this huge building. And I tell people, I don't know how to decorate this. Again, a slew of people come in, decorate it. And we get hundreds of homeless kids coming in, and we're searching that shelters database, and still I'm working full time, right? So at some point I got all this going on, and Russell Brand, the comedian, and some other guy in the program called me, and they're like, Lauri, I want to open a place called Freehab, and we're thinking you can help us do it since you do your nonprofit and you do the charity stuff. And I'm like, okay, Russell, I'll meet with you guys. So I meet with these 2 guys, and Russell's like, I want to see a warehouse, and I want barracks, and it will take hundreds of homeless people. And I'm like, okay, warehouse, zoning. I'm thinking about all the stuff that entails. And the other guy's like, find an old treatment center. We'll just open a treatment center that closed, something that's ready with a kitchen, the bathrooms, and everything. I don't want to spend a lot on construction. So, but Russell's really got his mindset. So I like, look, guys, I'm going to look at every warehouse and every treatment center until I find what you guys want. And I'll start the charity for you. And when I find the right place, you just come and look at it. So I go out 3 weeks later, I find a warehouse connected to a treatment center owned by the same lady. So I call them up and So Russell walks in, he's like, it's brilliant, sign the lease. And I'm like, okay. So I signed the lease, $20,000 a month. That's what they said their budget was. So I signed the lease for $20,000 a month. The rich guy relapses, and Russell gets a gig back in the UK. And I just signed a 20-year lease for $20,000, and I don't have any money. And I'm at work, and I am stressed out. And this man calls me one day at work, and I pick up the phone. He's like, Lauri, my name's Paul. And I like foster kids, and I like what you're doing. So a couple of people, I just moved into town. They said, you need to meet Lauri Burns, but I didn't want to like come and meet you. So instead, I got your book off of Amazon. I just read your life story, and I want to help you. And I'm like, how, Paul? How do you want to help me? And he said, I don't know, Lauri. And I said, well, I certainly don't know. I don't even know who you are. But I know one thing, that God whispers in our ears, and if we're quiet enough, we could hear what he's saying. So what is he telling you to do? How is he telling you to help me? And he said, Lauri, to tell you the truth, I do know how I'm supposed to help. I'm going to wire you $500,000 right now. And I have no idea why, but I've read your story, and I know you're going to do something good with it. And I start crying, and I'm like, do you realize that I just signed the lease, a 20-year lease on a rehab center that I could open for homeless and sex trafficked kids. And we could give them free rehab and free vocational school, everything that I got to turn their lives around. And we could just let them walk in. And he was like on fire. And he went over and he looked at the place. And then he called me back at work and he said, Lauri, I can't donate $500,000 to someone who doesn't even work at their own charity. And I'm like, well, I need to work where I work so I can donate to the charity. And he said, I'll donate another $500,000 if you quit your job. And I said, well, you know, Paul, $500,000 could save an awful lot of kids. And he's like, Lauri, what's it going to take? And I said, I'm not going to take any money from a kid. And he said, Lauri, I'll loan you $750,000 and you best pay me back. But I'm giving you 30 years. And if you don't pay me back, I'll probably wipe it off. But let's not talk about it now. It's a loan. Pay me back. So quit your job. So I quit my job and I opened rehab for sex trafficked and homeless girls. We've helped 570 girls in the past 3 years to get free rehab and vocational schooling. And people tell me, like, what's the application process for rehab? You call my phone, you go, I'm homeless. And I go, we'll send you an Uber. That's about how it goes, right? So I'm going to share two more things, and then I want to shut up. A couple of years ago, I was speaking on the CA cruise line in Mexico, and the cruise line dock, my cell phone turned on. I thought it was Northrop, right? So I thought they're going crazy with IT questions of some sort. And I pick up the message, and it's like, this is Dr. Green at St. Helens, Florida Hospital. Your father's here. There's been a serious incident, and I need you to call me immediately. Now, the words incident and father did not hit well with me. I was writing my story at the time, and just, you know, a couple of years ago in my therapy, I realized maybe my dad had never been loved, and I heard what Gandhi said about be the change you want to see in the world. So I had started writing letters to my dad through my therapy, that thinking maybe that nobody ever loved him. So I would be a stand like you guys were for me, a stand for love and forgiveness for my dad. And I might be the first person that loves my dad. So I started writing letters to him saying, you're an engineer, I'm an engineer. I love your sense of humor. I've got you. Talking about the things that are good about my dad instead of the bad things, right? So I know on this day, it has something to do with that. And I called a man back and he said, your father tried to take his life and the life of his girlfriend. He's been here for a couple of days. He said he has no one. And 3 days ago, he said he has one daughter and her name was Lauri. And we could call you, and he gave us your phone number, and that was those letters, right? And he said he just keeps on saying he did bad things and he needs to die. Do you have any idea what he's talking about? And I said, yeah, I know what he's talking about. And he said, I can put you on the phone with your dad, but he's been in real bad shape. And I just want to warn you before you hear him and you get on the phone with him. And his girlfriend's at another psych ward because we don't know what went on there. If she was suicidal or he was going to kill her. So I get on the phone with my dad, and he says, how dare you? How dare you love me? How dare you forgive me after what I've done to you? I don't deserve your love. I deserve to die. And I said, Dad, don't you realize it's because of every single day of my life being perfectly where it was, perfectly how it was, that gets me right here, right now, which is the most beautiful life I could have ever imagined. And I wouldn't trade my life for anybody's. And I am so blessed. And it's because you were the perfect guy to get me here. And I love you and I forgive you, and you need to forgive yourself. And then he started crying, and the guy got back on the phone. He said, I can't release your dad. Not only did he try and kill himself, he tried to kill somebody else. Unless you want to take him into your custody and get him into treatment or rehab or some kind of counseling. And I thought about the Bible. Even though I'm Jewish, I was reading to see what you guys have on the other side through the Bible, right? And I read that whole Joseph story, and I'm like, okay, this is what I should do. This is what Gandhi would do. So I picked up my dad at Long Beach Airport, and he started crying, and he had a suitcase in his hand. He goes, you don't get it, do you? And I'm like, get what, Dad? Get what? And he goes, your grandmother that loved you so much, who's now passed on? I'm like, yeah, what about her? Grandma, what? And he said, that was my foster mom. And you're saving all these foster kids after what I did to you. And I hugged him, and that day, he was our oldest foster kid at the house, right? We kept my dad for a year, and we treated him with so much love that he couldn't forget it. He left changed. He was still bitter, resentful, angry, even at the end. But you could tell it was breaking him down. And he calls me now, and he says, how come I haven't heard from you? How come you don't call me every day? How come you don't check on me? And now he's coming out to visit me. And one day, you know, it's the most beautiful thing. And now he knows, and he got mad at me. Your story is my story. He saw my story on Oprah, and he sent it to a bunch of his friends. It says the whole thing in there about the gun and everything. And he's like, my friends are driving crazy, calling me, saying, what'd you do to your daughter? And I'm like, Dad, we're either going to save them together, or I'm going to save them without you. Our lives are going to be a representation for hope for other kids that are in the foster care system. And he said, okay, Lauri, tell the story. I just don't want to see it anymore. Then I called Tom one day and I said, Tom, the guy in the wheelchair, I said, you need to come see my charity house down here that I built. And he said, Lauri, I don't care about kids. Why don't we go to Starbucks? And I'm like, Tom, come to my charity house. Let's just meet at the charity house and we'll go to Starbucks. So he rolls up to the front of that charity house and he sees this plaque that's always been on the door and it says the Fauntleroy House. Some Shakespearean quote about light after the rain. His last name is Fauntleroy. That plaque has always been there. And he looks at me and he said, Lauri, what is my name doing on this flipping house? And I'm like, Tom, you saved my life. And he's like, Lauri, I give you a fucking ride. I'm like, Tom, you used to come and look for me on the street. You had a little peanut of hope that maybe someday I could be somebody. And I didn't have anything. And that little ounce of hope that you used to carry to me every time you come looking for me was enough to bridge me from hell into this beautiful life today. You saved my life, Tom. And he looked like he was going to cry, so he rolled off in a wheelie. Anyway, if you're here and you heard what I just said, and you know how I rolled up here, know that anything is possible and never let your head stop you from becoming who you're supposed to be. Just stay. Thanks for letting me share.